Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. So obviously a big story for the last couple of months, maybe even the last year or so at this point, has been Schalke and this kind of back and forth of whether or not they were going to have to sell their LEC slot, get rid of their LEC team, get rid of their League of Legends team. This whole story kind of dates back to obviously the pandemic starting with Schalke, the football team in Germany, having some issues because of the pandemic. Obviously revenue has been really tight. We've seen that in the LCS with American organizations as well. A lot of the NBA teams, really struggling with money and having to cut the budget of a lot of their LCS teams. But in the LCS, we didn't see anyone have to sell off. But in the LEC, things got even worse once Schalke actually got relegated from the Bundesliga, which is obviously going to be another big hit to that pay. And it was just kind of in limbo whether or not they were going to have to sell the slot. They weren't committing to anything. They weren't sure exactly what was going to happen. But today, it seems like we might have an update on that story. Make sure you guys do drop a like on this video. I would appreciate that a ton. It really does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Also subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. With that being said, here we go. So Leaker Zoo, this was today, a couple hours ago, 3 hours ago, tweeted out that Schalke is going to have to sell the esports team according to BILD. Now I didn't know what BILD is. Obviously, I'm not from Germany. I'm not German. BILD, when I googled it, it's like a tabloid newspaper kind of article type thing. I don't really know what you'd equate it to. If you'd equate it to like TMZ or something, or I don't exactly know, but they did put out this tweet, which luckily we have the handy Google Translate here, that Schalke plays Monopoly and has to sell due to high rents. So for the esports license for the LOL League, LEC, to be sold to an investor for $30 million. This will be a $22 million profit, but he does say that the bitter part of this is that the value of that license probably would have risen very sharply in the future. Obviously, they're just selling, their spot in the LEC. Pretty crazy, $30 million, obviously nothing to scoff at. $22 million profit, nothing to scoff at there. But again, like this man does say, this sucks because a lot of people do think that the LEC, the LCS, these leagues, esports in general, League of Legends esports maybe even specifically, do have a very bright future ahead of them. And you can see that they were able to turn an $8 million investment into $30 million in just like a couple of years, or however long Schalke's been in the LEC now. And a lot of projections, a lot of the growth numbers, and especially with all the new money coming into the market, people expect that this value is going to continue to rise. We've been seeing a lot of crazy viewership. We've been seeing bigger and bigger sponsorship deals. We've been seeing all this stuff. But this really does suck for Schalke fans, for people in the LEC, for just fans of the LEC in general, and even, greater League of Legends fans throughout the world, because as like an LEC fan, you want to see teams growing fan bases. You want to see teams growing audiences. You want to see the overall landscape of LOL esports. Even if like you're an LCS fan in NA, you want to see the LEC doing well. You want to see their teams building big brands, building big audiences, building loyal followers, because that's going to be good for everyone. And whenever a team has to reset, whenever a team has to sell their slot off, whenever a team has to, get rid of theirs, bring in somebody different, and that new team coming in pretty much has to start all the way over. There are obviously going to be some European organizations that have some fan bases, maybe from other esports, maybe even from League of Legends in the past, maybe from European regional leagues right now. But again, when you're comparing that to most other LEC teams, the fan bases are not going to be comparable. And the average LEC fan or League of Legends fan watching worldwide, tuning into LEC games, isn't going to know who a lot of these organizations are, isn't going to know a lot about the teams, what they stand for, where they're from, anything like that. So it is kind of really going to be starting over. And the more often you just have to start over, build from scratch, it is a big risk. And the more you're bringing in a new team, some teams come into the league and they do insanely well. They have crazy branding, crazy socials, crazy sponsorships. But, look at the LEC and the LCS. There's a ton of teams doing a whole lot of nothing. There's a ton of teams with absolutely garbage social medias who are not building fan bases, who are just kind of leeching off the revenue sharing that they're getting from these leagues every year. So, franchising, I definitely think solved a big problem with having too many rotating teams and the teams at the bottom not ever being able to cultivate fan bases and build up over the course of the year. But again, when we have issues like these, it really does suck. And I think this is just another example of it sucks that a lot of these esports investors, a lot of these organizations, they don't see their esports teams, they don't see their esports divisions as like a big focus for them. When we see like teams like TSM Cloud9, Team Liquid, they are esports organizations. They are doing everything in their power to make sure their esports teams are profitable, successful, building brands, doing everything. But when you get an NBA team coming in and buying an esports team, when you get a Schalke coming in and buying a League of Legends team, even when everything's going well, it's still not their top priority. They're still willing to sell it off when they have to. You know, again, I don't blame them for doing this, but I'm just saying it does suck. I think it really is so much better for esports, League of Legends in general, to be actually getting teams that their main focus is the LEC, or their main focus is the LCS, or their main focus is even just esports. So we don't have situations like this happening, because it definitely does suck. Now, again, we don't know exactly what the team is going to be. I was trying to dig around and ask people and find out if we know who is going to be buying this slot up for $30 million. I know Wooloo has kind of speculated who it could be in the past. I know a lot of people are hoping it's going to be K-Corp, but I know a lot of the rumors going around was that K-Corp was not interested, or they were interested at some point, but were maybe not interested in at the final asking price, maybe not interested in the $30 million investment, whether a lot of these organizations even have that kind of money to come up with or not. Obviously, that is a very, very big investment. There's also talks about the LEC potentially expanding to 12 teams at some point in the near future, you know, which would probably be a lot cheaper of an investment for a lot of these teams than dropping like 30 million buying this slot from Schalke. But it'll be interesting to see exactly how any of that stuff works out. Obviously, throughout this offseason, Schalke has made some moves. They ended up selling off Abadage to 100 Thieves for what was reported to be potentially a $7 million buyout. And people were saying, you know, if they can get $1 million plus for Abadage, maybe that'll convince Schalke that they have a profitable business venture here, and maybe they'll hang on to the team. I thought maybe they would have to sell off Gilius. Maybe they'd sell off Broken Blade. Maybe they could keep just getting money to keep their team afloat a little bit longer, but obviously that didn't happen. And I do think it is just kind of crazy here that the rumors that Abadage is going to be making 500k euros, which I think is around $600,000 per year with 100 Thieves. You know, he got out of that sinking ship in Schalke. He's going to make a bunch of money, and it's just kind of crazy the differences between you know, the LCS and the LEC right now, where we saw TSM sign a $210 million deal with a sponsor today. We see Abadage leaving Europe and making all this kinds of money, all these players from Europe going over to NA and talking about the crazy money they're getting, and then we see Fnatic and their management issues and how all that's going, and they're talking about having financial issues, and now Schalke's having financial issues. They're having to sell off their team. It's just kind of crazy how different some of the dynamics are in esports and how things are going on right now. But yeah, it will be cool to see this final farewell split from Schalke, obviously with Nuclear Int in the mid lane, Kira in the jungle. I don't have super high expectations for that team, but hopefully they do end strong. Hopefully, you know, they're able to give Schalke fans one last run. Hopefully they make the playoffs, are somewhat competitive. I'm not expecting them to go to Worlds or anything like that, but it will be interesting to watch. And I'm definitely looking out for who that next team in the LEC is going to be, because that's going to be a very, very big deal. And, you know, getting the right team, the right fan base, the right organization with the right mindset could do wonders for the LEC. And in the end, this could be an overall net positive for Europe, for LEC, for League of Legends in general. But that is pretty much every video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate it so much. Really does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Leave a comment down below. What team do you guys want to see in the LEC? If Schalke is actually selling their spot, who should they sell it to? Who should buy it? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace!